Bonjour à tous, ici en salle au SPF Boza et en ligne. Je suis ravi de modérer cette session avec une personnalité de l'intelligence artificielle en Belgique comme Mieke de Ketelaar et surtout de vous donner envie de suivre cette semaine riche d'enseignements et riche en événements. Welcome to everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you here at FPS Boza and online to introduce you this week and this opening session in particular. Cette édition a été organisée à l'initiative de Boza avec toute la communauté AI for Belgium et ses partenaires. Elle promet une fois de plus des débats passionnants et des projets inspirants. The main theme for this edition is about innovation versus regulation. This means that we will cover topics such as ethics and law, for sure, but health, mobility, creative and cultural industry, public services, but also competitiveness and innovation, skills, and finally, how to stay informed in the era of generative AI. More generally, we will talk about the future of digital and the role of AI in our society. Yeah. So, a big thank to all the speakers we have gathered for this event. We are more than 70 people participating in Boza, but also within the ecosystem. And I'm quite proud to say that we have more than 40% of women participating to this debate. The opening ceremony is recorded, and you will have the opportunity to ask your question at the end, in the room or online, after every debate.
Welkom allemaal. Ook ik ben enorm vereerd om samen met Nathanael de opening te mogen doen van deze AI-week. Na een succesvolle sessie vorige jaren zijn we dan heel enthousiast om toch deze al 4e editie impactvoller te maken in wat ik regelmatig noem wellicht het belangrijkste jaar van artificiële intelligentie. Welcome all to this 4th edition. This week, the AI community got together to help everyone to discover potential of AI applications. We will showcase the latest developments, and we will put the most important talent of AI in Belgium. I think if you look around in the room, you see we have really the crème de la crème of Belgium here. Thanks for being here. In the next hour, we've prepared an overview of the AI work. We've invited special guests from the European Commission. Mrs. Scioli will join us soon. We've invited also the 3 regions, thanks for being here, to represent your specific focus. But additionally, we have the very pleasure to have our new minister, Vanessa Mats, here with us. Thanks for being with us. She's our new minister, and I need to read this. She's the new Minister of Modernization of the Public Administration, in charge of public enterprises, public administration, property management of the state, digitalization, and federal scientific institutions. Wow!
Bon, depuis 2021, la European AI Week rassemble les acteurs belges de l'intelligence artificielle des 3 régions et communautés, ainsi que des partenaires européens et internationaux. Experts, développeurs, décideurs publics et citoyens se réunissent pour explorer les défis et les opportunités de l'IA. Cette semaine est bien plus qu'une série de conférences et de débats, c'est un carrefour d'idées, d'expertise et de vision où nous recherchons ensemble l'équilibre entre progrès et responsabilité. So what can you expect from this agenda? So why have we a yearly EU AI Week? The first thing is clarify the issue at stake for citizens with regard to AI and open the debate in a European context. The second thing is, as federal, support and strengthen the collaboration on AI between all stakeholders in Belgium, across the region and across the traditional silos, academia, private sector, public sector, civil society, and even citizens are present today. And finally, make Belgium and its region more visible and more attractive at the European and international level. So, we will kick off the afternoon with an engaging panel on innovation and regulation, in which experts answer the question of how we can stimulate AI without losing sight of safety and ethics. This morning, we have already had a session on the impact of AI on healthcare, with session on medtech innovation for disease such as diabetes and neurological disorder. On Thursday, we will have a joint event with the UK Embassy on the health sector too. If you see the program online or on your left or on your right, you see that every evening we will have a big debate in BOSA. So how to implement AI in the public services for tomorrow, how to get trained in AI, and how to stay informed in the age of generative AI. We will have also a deep discussion on the AI Act implementation, and we will have several presentations of books every day from Belgian authors that have been published this year on digital economy or on more ethical and legal aspect of the AI Act, or also what's happening outside, for example, in China. We have more than 20 other events outside BOSA with many different aspects. For example, if you are interested in the way we can shape the cities in the future, how to strengthen or enhance the human-machine interaction, we will have a presentation from Digital Vlaanderen of the digital playbook. So please go on the website and see what you can attend, because it's very rich. Mieke? Yeah, maybe one last word. We have more than 40 partners organizing this. So I can name the regional institution and organization that support AI and that will be present, such as TRAIL, such as Data and Maatschappij Kenniscentrum, such as FARI, that you will see. But all the universities, we have also media that do participate and support, and we have narrowly collaborated with our colleagues from SPF Economy, SPF Intérieur also. And we have to thank very much the European Commission to be on most of the debates, because there are there is Altijd a representative from the European Commission on stage. So I leave you the floor now.
Toujours. Perfect. What an agenda. I think we can be very proud of it. For those who have followed the news on artificial intelligence in the press, locally, at European level or worldwide, I think you realize we are really at the crossroads of innovation and taking responsibility. Just some weeks ago, Joshua Benjwa represented his International AI Safety Report in collaboration with 30 nations. This report shows the urgency and the highlights on some concerns: AI in context of cyber attacks, deepfakes, the risk of job displacement, the rising energy consumptions, and the loss of human oversight. In parallel, we also witness a historic step in regulation with the activation of the European AI Act, the beginning of February, the world's first most comprehensive legal framework on artificial intelligence. I think we can be very proud of this. This legislation introduces strict rules for high-risk systems, bans for manipulative and surveillance-based practices, and enforces transparency, something Europe is very strong on. On the global stage, technical breakthroughs don't stop. I think it was a big surprise to some of us that, when China's DeepSeek was setting a new standard at the level of speed and efficiency when it got to energy consumption. But it also reshaped the balance between open source and proprietary models that are out there. In response to this rapidly evolving landscape, nations are now mobilizing extraordinary resources. The European Commission, at the beginning of February, has unveiled an Invest AI program aiming to raise 200 billion, including a dedicated fund to construct AI gigafactories across our continent. I think if one point is clear, is from all this news that budgets will be needed. Today, we gather not only to explore these transformations, but we want to shape them together as a society, with foresight, responsibility, and shared commitment for a future where AI can serve humanity.
Very important indeed. Let's use this week to learn, debate, and build a smart and ethical future for AI in Europe together. Welcome to the EU AI Week 2025. It's time now to introduce Vanessa Matz, our Federal Minister for Digital Affairs, and all the rest. We are extremely proud of our new minister here today because we are convinced that Belgium and Europe must stay competitive in the global AI race by investing in homegrown technologies and talent. Belgium historically has a dynamic, ethical AI ecosystem blending private innovation with public transformation. Her speech is an important call towards the importance of collaboration in order to shape a responsible, human-centered AI future. Ms. Minister.
Merci beaucoup pour cette introduction et merci déjà de m'avoir mis la pression de manière assez importante, que ce soit non seulement au niveau des compétences, mais aussi au niveau des attentes qui sont bien légitimes. Chers participants, chers experts, beste deelnemers, beste experts, c'est un honneur et un immense plaisir de m'adresser à vous aujourd'hui à l'occasion de l'ouverture de l'AI Week. Cette semaine est une belle illustration de notre ambition européenne commune, faire de l'intelligence artificielle un levier de progrès et d'innovation pour tous nos citoyens, nos entreprises et nos administrations. L'intelligence artificielle est bien plus qu'une simple tendance technologique, elle transforme en profondeur notre société, notre économie et nos vies quotidiennes. Elle est source de nouvelles opportunités pour les services publics, pour les entreprises et pour les citoyens. Ayant dans mes attributions la compétence du numérique, je soutiens pleinement l'IA en tant qu'innovation et je crois fermement qu'elle peut devenir un catalyseur de progrès pour l'ensemble de notre continent. L'intelligence artificielle représente une formidable opportunité pour chacun d'entre nous. Pour les citoyens, elle permet d'améliorer la qualité des services publics en les rendant plus efficaces, plus accessibles et plus personnalisés. À titre d'exemple, grâce à l'IA, les services de santé pourront devenir plus réactifs et mieux adaptés aux besoins individuels, avec un diagnostic plus rapide et plus précis. Dans le domaine de la mobilité, des solutions intelligentes permettront de fluidifier les déplacements, de réduire la congestion et d'améliorer la qualité de vie. Op het gebied van onderwijs maakt artificiële intelligentie de ontwikkeling mogelijk van slim educatieve tools, die zich aanpassen aan het tempo en de behoeften van leerlingen. Die draagt bij een leerproces op maat met gerichter leesmateriaal, praktische oefeningen en evaluatie die aansluiten bij ieders tempo. Pour les entreprises, l'IA ouvre des perspectives de compétitivité et de gain d'efficacité. Elle favorise la création de produits et services innovants pour mieux répondre aux attentes des consommateurs et aux besoins du marché. En optimisant l'efficacité opérationnelle et en automatisant les processus répétitifs, elle permet non seulement de libérer du temps pour d'autres tâches, mais aussi de faciliter une prise de décision plus éclairée, rapide et fondée sur des données fiables. Pour que l'IA bénéficie pleinement à notre société et à notre économie, il est essentiel de la développer selon une approche stratégique, en l'encadrant, en la régulant, en la mettant en œuvre de manière stable et réfléchie. Nous avons la responsabilité collective de veiller à ce que l'IA soit utilisée de façon éthique, efficace et équitable, ce qui permettra de stimuler une croissance durable et une innovation respectueuse, tout en assurant la protection des citoyens et la compétitivité de nos entreprises. hoewel artificiële intelligentie enorme voordelen biedt, roept het ook vragen en bezorgdheden op. Bedrijven en niet bijzonder KMS hebben rond een duidelijk richtlijnen en stabiel kader, zodat het potentieel van artificiële intelligentie kunnen benutten zonder met hun hoofd tegen de muur te lopen. Burgers willen ook duidelijkheid over het gebruik van uw gegevens en de ethische garanties voor deze technologie. Daarom heeft België zich op Europees niveau ingezet voor cruciale maatregelen om de ontwikkeling van artificiële intelligentie te begeleiden en innovatie te stimuleren. Een belangrijk moment in deze inspanningen was de goedkeuring van de AI-verordening tijdens de formele raad telecommunicatie in Louvain-la-Neuve onder een Belgische voorzitterschap van de Raad van de Europese Unie op 21 met 2024. Deze wetgeving deelt toepassingen van artificiële intelligentie in op basis van hun risiconiveau. Voor ook risicosystemen gelden strikte vereisten, terwijl innovatie wordt gestimuleerd met respect van de fundamentele rechten. Deze verordening is geen rem op innovatie, maar een kader dat de ontwikkeling van de artificiële intelligentie waarborgt in een klimaat van vertrouwen en veiligheid. Cependant, je suis consciente qu'il subsiste encore certaines préoccupations. L'impact de l'AI sur les PME et les start-up nécessite un suivi constant. La charge administrative ne doit certainement pas s'alourdir davantage, bien au contraire, et certains aspects de la régulation doivent être clarifiés pour garantir que nos entreprises puissent continuer à innover. Nous devons aussi avancer dans des travaux de standardisation et dans le partage de bonnes pratiques pour assurer une adoption harmonieuse de l'IA à travers l'Europe. Il est essentiel de réfléchir à l'application concrète de cette régulation dans chaque secteur, en prenant en compte les spécificités de chaque domaine. Je travaillerai ainsi à l'établissement d'un cadre législatif cohérent et à une stratégie coordonnée conçue en étroite collaboration avec les différentes instances nationales et européennes et les acteurs de l'IA. L'objectif est de garantir une régulation claire, simple et proportionnée au service de l'innovation et du progrès. Artificiële intelligentie evolueert razendsnel en we mogen de wereldwijd uitdagingen en kansen van artificiële intelligentie niet negeren. Terwijl enorme investeringen in artificiële intelligentie worden gedaan, vooral in de Verenigde Staten en China, moet Europa zich als een sleutelspeler positioneren. Recente aankondigingen laten zien hoe groot de uitdaging is, zoals de $500 miljard die de Verenigde Staten uittrekt of €200 miljard die de Europese Unie zal investeren in de versterking van haar infrastructuur voor artificiële intelligentie. Daarom moet Europa zijn gewicht in de schaal leggen. L'émergence rapide des technologies d'intelligence artificielle portées par des acteurs mondiaux comme OpenAI soulève des défis majeurs pour notre continent. Un exemple emblématique de cette dynamique est le lancement de DeepSeek, un modèle de langage qui semble bien moins coûteux à produire que GPT 4.5, tout en affichant une performance de haut niveau. Bien que des éclaircissements soient encore nécessaires sur ces points, il est important de s'interroger sur ce qui pourrait promouvoir l'émergence de modèles open source moins coûteux et donc moins énergivores en Europe. En effet, nous devons nous assurer que ces investissements se traduisent par des projets innovants et contribuent à l'émergence de technologies européennes d'envergure capables de rivaliser avec ces modèles. Il est essentiel d'encourager nos talents à concevoir des technologies d'intelligence artificielle compétitives qui respectent pleinement nos valeurs éthiques et humaines. In België zijn we een opmerkelijk dynamiek in de sector van artificiële intelligentie. Start-up en snel groeiende bedrijven zijn volop in ontwikkeling en Belgische bedrijven zitten niet stil. Denk bijvoorbeeld aan Takeoff en Robivision, die in 2024 aanzienlijk fondsen hebben opgehaald om hun ontwikkeling voor te zetten, of Texgen, winnaar van de Groot AI Grand Challenge, prijs van de Europese Commissie. Ook iCare, dat recent naar de beurs is gegaan, is mooi voorbeeld van Belgisch ondernemerschap in artificiële intelligentie. Deze bedrijven tonen de Belgische excellentie in artificiële intelligentie en innovatie. Ce dynamisme du secteur privé est un catalyseur pour la transformation des services publics dans le respect des valeurs éthiques qui nous sont chères. Je ne veux pas ajouter une nouvelle couche à la lasagne. La Belgique a des systèmes déjà suffisamment complexes, mais capitaliser sur les structures et synergies existantes pour maximiser l'efficacité sans duplication des efforts. Le plan national de convergence, avec son chapitre dédié à la promotion d'une IA de confiance, illustre à la fois cette volonté d'allier progrès technologique et responsabilité sociétale en développant une IA fiable et respectueuse des droits fondamentaux. Je compte le renforcer afin de déployer une vision commune pour l'IA partagée par tous les niveaux de pouvoir, le monde académique et le secteur privé, grâce à des actions concrètes telles que la publication d'un outil de self-assessment collaboratif, le comité consultatif d'éthique des données et de l'intelligence artificielle et la cartographie des applications IA dans les services publics fédéraux. Nous intégrons l'IA de manière réfléchie dans nos administrations. Ce lien entre l'innovation privée et la modernisation des services publics permet de fournir de meilleurs services aux citoyens. Le SPF BOSA, en tant qu'acteur clé de la coordination au sein de l'administration fédérale, prendra l'engagement de développer et de renforcer l'expertise en intelligence artificielle au bénéfice de toutes les administrations publiques. Grâce à un accompagnement personnalisé et sur mesure, offert aux services publics, à la formation continue des agents et à la mise à disposition de solutions innovantes, nous veillerons à ce que l'IA devienne un moteur d'amélioration de la qualité des services et un vecteur d'innovation. Mon objectif est clair, permettre à chaque administration de disposer de compétences nécessaires pour intégrer l'IA dans leurs tâches et pratiques afin de répondre de manière plus réactive et efficace aux besoins des citoyens et des entreprises. Je suis heureuse de pouvoir vous annoncer l'adoption prochaine de la charte sur l'utilisation de l'intelligence artificielle, marquant ici une étape déterminante de notre engagement à utiliser cette technologie de manière responsable et éthique. Avec cette initiative, nous voulons établir un modèle de gouvernance qui place l'humain au cœur de l'intelligence artificielle tout en renforçant la confiance du public à l'égard de cette technologie et en positionnant la Belgique comme un leader en matière d'IA éthique et responsable. Ik wil eindigen met een oproep tot samenwerking. AI is een wereldwijde uitdaging. Samen kunnen we die aanpakken. Dat doen jullie hier op de AI Week. Jullie inbreng zal de toekomst van AI in Europa mee voor Wormgeven. Je tiens à remercier chaleureusement le SBF Bosa pour l'organisation de cet événement, ainsi que tous les participants pour leur engagement et vous souhaite une excellente semaine, riche en discussions, en idées et en projets passionnants. Ensemble, soyons innovants et faisons de l'IA un véritable moteur de progrès pour les citoyens, les entreprises et les services publics européens. Je vous remercie.
Dankjewel. Merci. Thank you, Minister, for this very inspiring speech. We're all, as a community, very much looking forward to collaborating with you. Now it's time to listen to our regions, and we're going to travel through Belgium. We're going to go from the south to the north. So the first region that will present their fantastic plans is Wallonia. For Wallonia, we've invited Emily Fogarty. She's the program manager for Digital Wallonia for AI. Can you please join us in expressing your plans? Thank you very much for being with us.
Madam Minister, dear partners, dear citizens, dear organizer, dear Nathanael and Mick, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to participate in the opening ceremony of the AI Week 2025, a key moment to inspire ourselves, inform ourselves, and question the role of artificial intelligence in our society, and above all, to decide what we want to make of it. This year's theme, Innovations versus Regulation, perfectly illustrates the delicate balance we must strike. AI opens up immense possibilities, transforming our businesses, public services, and daily lives. But like any technological breakthrough, it also raises fundamental questions. How far do we go? How do we ensure that AI truly serves us rather than works against us? How can AI be harnessed to create a more human and sustainable society? In Wallonia, we have chosen not to passively endure this transformation, but to actively shape them. Since the creation of the program Digital Wallonia for AI in 2019, we have built a strong momentum to accelerate AI adoption among businesses, public services, and citizens. We have structured our ecosystem around 4 key pillars: raising awareness in society and modernizing our public services, supporting and financing businesses in their transformation, developing AI skills and training, and stimulating research, innovation, and partnerships. And the results speak for themselves. Today, Digital Wallonia for AI has supported more than 650 Walloon companies across all sectors. Every company is affected, regardless of its industry or size. Today, over 60 AI expert companies provide AI-driven service to businesses. Today, thousands of people have been trained or sensitized to AI. Today, over 600 AI researchers, particularly within Trail, are driving innovation in our region. Today, Digital Wallonia for AI represents a network of over 50 partners working alongside businesses. These numbers highlight one essential truth. We are moving forward. A few years ago, our primary challenge was to raise awareness, inform, and explain why AI is and what it can bring to the table. We have done that work, and we continue to do so. However, we are now entering a new phase: acceleration. As you can see, the figures speak for themselves. StartIA and TremplaIA, our 2 support programs for launching AI projects, are experiencing much enthusiasm. Companies are no longer asking if they should engage with AI. They are asking how to integrate it effectively into their processes. We are shifting from awareness to action. But let's be clear. Taking action does not mean rushing blindly. AI is a powerful driver of transformation, but if poorly designed or implemented, it can become a waste of time, money, and energy. The goal today is not to adopt AI at any cost, but to adopt AI intelligently. Investing where it makes sense, testing methodically, selecting relevant use case, and sharing knowledge. Success in AI won't come from those who move the fastest, but from those who move wisely, those who dare to experiment while staying fully aware of the inherent risks in these projects. AI is not deployed in a single attempt. It evolves through iterations with lessons learned at every stage. And to help organizations mitigate this risk, I'm pleased to announce that as of last Friday, we have launched the Tremplin IA call for projects for Walloon organizations. This initiative supports the implementation of proof of concepts, allowing organizations to de-risk their AI initiatives and evaluate their return on investment. For more detail, I'm inviting you to visit the program website digitalwallonia.be/AI. But supporting local initiatives alone is not enough. AI knows no borders, and its deployment cannot be limited to a purely regional approach. To fully harness its potential, our efforts must be part of a broader, more integrated dynamic. Artificial intelligence is a revolution that transcends regional and sectoral boundaries. Its success depends on a coherent vision, effective coordination between decision-making levels, and a regulatory framework that fosters its development. Its impact extends beyond administrative boundaries, and both its regulation and adoption cannot be approached solely at a local level. That is why coordination at the federal level is essential. A responsible and competitive AI ecosystem requires clear and harmonized regulations, ensuring that businesses gain the visibility needed to innovate, while citizens can trust that this transformation aligns with fundamental value. We are now entering a crucial phase, the concrete implementation of the European AI Act. This landmark regulation, the first of its kind worldwide, establishes obligations based on the level of risk associated with AI systems. However, translating this into real-world economic and industrial practice remains a challenge. How do we support businesses in adapting to these new requirements? How do we ensure that regulation protects society without stifling innovation? In this context, we extend our sincere thanks to BOZA and AI for Belgium for organizing this AI Week and for playing a key role in structuring a coherent national AI policy. And its role has to be more developed and reinforced. It is crucial that all stakeholders, regional, federal, academic, and private, work hand in hand to build an ecosystem where innovation and regulation progress together rather than in opposition. Beyond numbers and strategies, a deeper question remains. What kind of future do we want to build? When children pick up a crayon and start drawing, they don't worry about whether their lines are perfect or whether they follow all the rules of perspective. They imagine, they create, they shape a world that reflects their dreams. Why should we not do the same with artificial intelligence? Why not see it as a canvas where we have both the power and the responsibility to shape the future we desire? We too often think of AI in terms of constraints, limitations, and risks. Yes, risks exist and they must be managed. But there are also immense opportunities. AI can be a powerful tool to improve our lives, make our jobs easier, and enhance our public services. Yet it will only have the desired impact if we choose to be its architects rather than passive spectators. To do this, we must change our perspective. Too often, AI debates are trapped in sterile oppositions, black or white, good or bad, progress or prudence. But the world is never that binary. It's full of nuances, complementarities, and balances to be found. It's not innovation or regulation. It's not openness or protection. It's not AI or humanity. It's innovation and regulation. It's openness and protection. It's AI and humanity. It is up to us to ensure this end prevails. Let us not fall into the trap of polarized debate that paralyzes. Let us experiment, test, refine, and build. We must dare to be ambitious, dare to experiment, dare to act, because we have everything to gain. So let's make the most of this week to learn, debate, and above all, take action. I wish you an inspiring and impactful AI week.
Thank you very much, Emily. And now we have the pleasure to welcome Karen Boers, Managing Director of the FARI AI for the Common Good Institute in Brussels, to present the Brussels AI ecosystem.
Thank you, Nathaniel, and indeed to the entire team for organizing this, because it's important that we come together as regions and that we see, from a practice point of view, that we are much more aligned than maybe on other levels it may seem to be the case, because the way that we look at AI in the Brussels capital region is not so different from Flanders or from Wallonia, luckily, and even the people in the field often are part of the different ecosystems, and there is a lot of collaboration already ongoing in the field, as you will see from some of the examples. But yet some different accents are being put in the different ecosystems. So how about the Brussels one? Well, actually, especially at FARI, our institute, which is relatively young, this was inspired by Caroline Pauwels. I don't know if how many of you had the pleasure of knowing Caroline, but she was the former rector of the VUB, and she sadly passed away way too young. But she created the FARI Institute, a collaboration between the VUB and ULB universities, really from the vision that there is no such thing as progress through technology alone, but that it should always, as Emily just pointed out, be hand in hand with humanity, with human values, with human intelligence. And therefore, we try to really bring together all those different perspectives when we are dealing with AI on a day-to-day basis. So FARI is, as I mentioned, an inter-university institute bringing together not just the engineering and the AI units of the two universities, but also social sciences, the legal experts, the ethical experts, sustainability experts, because AI, as we've learned already today and as we all know here, it's not operating in a bubble, right? We need to really look at societal implications to be able to understand the true impact these technologies will have. And so we brought together a few years ago all these different areas of expertise that had been around for quite some time, of course, but to also make sure that we break out of that academic bubble and that we make sure that that expertise is being put to good use to help solve societal challenges that we all face on a day-to-day basis, that we work alongside businesses, that we work alongside public sector to address the challenges in healthcare, in mobility and transport, in environmental issues, etc. And so this is also truly inspired by Caroline's vision that the university should break out of its boundaries and should become part of society and part of the city. And that's what we're trying to put into practice and hopefully make her proud. How do we do that? Obviously, it starts also with applied research. That's what universities are known for, to really investigate how these AI solutions could be put into practice, starting from those real-life challenges. But we also learned quite quickly that to be able to do that properly, all of the partners around the table need to have a common understanding and have a good understanding of what it is, AI data and robotics in our case, and what it's not, what it's capable of, and what it's not very good at, when it's useful to put AI into place, and when there are more simple and probably more sustainable solutions possible. And so we really needed to start helping to educate the partners in our ecosystem to get this thorough understanding and to level the playing field so that we could brainstorm together, not just the experts and the non-experts, but all together, because we are all experts in our field and we need to work together interdisciplinary and across the different organizations to make this happen. And also what we've learned quite quickly, and probably we knew already, is that this is not a field in which there are experts. The people that are facing the challenges on a day-to-day basis, you are the experts, they are the experts. And exchange between them is as important as having the AI expert standing in front of the room and declaring truth. And so we saw that this peer-to-peer exchange is actually quite valuable, and so we try to organize across Brussels as much as possible these types of gatherings where we probably in the hallway over drinks are having the most interesting conversations, because then we're talking about the practice and the challenges that we face and how we've overcome them and what we can share and how we can reconnect once we exit this room. And that's super interesting. But sometimes you have to make it tangible. And so we also tried to make tangible what is going on in the Brussels ecosystem and what is the value of the outcomes of that type of research. And so we created a space in the building of Bicentral campus, which is the building of the Brussels Central train station, where you can come and see and experience what AI means in day-to-day practice, what it means in healthcare, what it means in mobility, what it means in education. And so really a kind of a demonstration and experience center in which we organize quite a lot of visits, but also team building events with local partners, so that they can not only listen to what it could mean for them, but feel and really be totally immersed in that type of possibility and opportunity. And then we try to go beyond that because we try to connect not only Brussels and Flanders and Wallonia, which we do very much on a day-to-day basis, but also, which place do we hold in the European ecosystem? How can we make sure that what we do is connected to good practices and bad practices that we learn from each other all over Europe? And as you know, and as I'm sure will come again and again across this week, there are many instruments that the European Commission and the European ecosystem is putting into place. So we should try to fit into some of those, but not try to be everywhere, but be good at some things rather than be present everywhere. And so if you look across Belgium and where the Brussels ecosystem is most active, you have on the one side the European Digital Innovation Hubs that you may know. So there is one that is located here in Brussels, which is focused on AI and sustainability. Very useful, very important connection. And so the European Digital Innovation Hub Sustain Brussels is focused on helping local businesses to understand how this AI wave could impact their business, not only how they could use and adopt AI tools in their day-to-day practice, but also to understand how AI may disrupt their business entirely and how to prepare for that, and really reflect on how to build an AI strategy and how to build an AI roadmap and to prioritize use cases. And to do this, they have, and the EDIH Sustain Brussels provides access not just to university labs, but also to a lot of industry experts to help in this reflection and in this adoption. Alongside, you also need infrastructure, right? So we are also part of the TEF sitcom.ai, where it's being reflected, like how can we make sure that we join forces across Europe and create a number of big infrastructures where and experimentation centers where we can really test like the more breakthrough innovations in a relatively safe space and make sure that we learn from the practice rather than from the theory. And to be able to do that, you have to stretch sometimes the regulation, because as we said, it's not innovation or regulation, it's both. And we need to have them go hand in hand and have the experimentation on the technology go hand in hand with experimentation on regulation and really reflect on what if, then that, what if, then that, and let them dance together, basically. And that's what we do in an AI regulatory sandbox. That's where we stretch the limits of current and future regulation and where we carefully try to co-design how it needs to be put in place to be able to work for innovation as well as for public safety, because I fully agree that that should go hand in hand. So what does that mean in practice? Just a few examples. We've built a digital twin infrastructure to really think and reflect and test how mobility can be affected positively thanks to AI tools and solutions. So to do like very complex traffic simulations, but also to have dashboards for people that may not be technical scholars, for them to understand what is going on in the data, to detect patterns, but in a very accessible way, and to design policies out of that and take informed decisions based on that on that data set. And we have an immersive space created also in the same building in the central train station, where these things can be visualized so that you can not only look at numbers and dashboards, but really literally like stand in the middle of what's going on with your data and interact with your data set and try to test what is the impact of your potential decisions that you're taking. The same, for how do we optimize traffic flows across the cities? We're using AI techniques to help policymakers understand what is the impact of possible scenarios and let them play out the scenarios in a kind of a virtual environment, so that they can see the impact and feel the impact from a human perspective rather than from a pure data perspective. Another example here locally is the Digiloom project, where we are really looking into a groundbreaking digital health ecosystem and trying to look very deeply into the data related to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and see if we can come up with medical breakthroughs through this technology perspective. So it's really like putting the experts from the different disciplines together and test and experiment how this impacts the progress in each industry. And it's not just in kind of the public sphere. For example, in the Brickiebot project, we're working with Basics, a big construction company, to see how AI and robotics could create robots that can take charge of certain tasks on the work floor, making sure that we don't have to expose people to very hazardous situations or prevent, for example, injuries taking place, but do that interaction between the robot and the humans in a safe way again. And we don't want the robot to be 99% sure of what it's doing. You don't want to be in the way in the case the 1% emerges. So we need to, again, test that in a safe lab environment, then test it in a real-life environment, etc., etc. And that's where these interactions between the experts in the field and the AI experts is so meaningful. Let's skip that. Voila. And that's basically what we're trying to do, start from the practice, learn in an agile way, as Emily explained before, and to really make sure that we drive from the challenge, from the society, and that the technology is an enabler. Thank you very much.
Dankjewel, Karen. Altijd super enthousiast over wat Vari aan het doen is. So we've arrived at the north of Belgium. So the next speaker is Rob Heijman. Rob is the lead at the Knowledge Center for Data and Society, and he will express to us, what exciting plans that they are doing at the level of AI. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here. Why? I wanted to start with a metaphor. I think AI for Belgium and this AI Week are really important because they bind us together into something I will use as a metaphor a lot. The love language of Belgians is food. I think we can all agree to that. One of the metaphors to explain AI has been an algorithm is a recipe to make a cheese sandwich, the croque-monsieur, as we would call it in Belgium. And I want to use this as a metaphor to explain how I think we are working in Flanders, but also how we want to work together in Belgium. How does that go? Well, one of the first things is that I need to explain what the Knowledge Center is. I was going a bit too quickly there. So the Knowledge Center is an independent knowledge center funded by the Flemish AI program. The Flemish AI program consists of 3 big parts. We have fundamental research. We have our applied research, where we help companies start R&D processes and projects. And then lastly, we have our supporting pillar. This pillar consists of us, the Knowledge Center, the AMI project, where we do citizen science with regards to AI, and lastly, VIA, the Flemish AI Academy. So these 3 parts are important. I'm talking about the Knowledge Center, and I'll try to zoom out to explain how Flanders is looking at all these things. All right, back to the metaphor of cooking. This is indeed, as Mieke told us, a really important year for AI. Why is that? In the AI kitchen, we have everything. We have the tools to cook with. We have the ingredients to cook with. But is that enough? No, you still need cooks to cook with and people to eat the food. And I think this is really important this year. How do we combine all these things together in really delicious Belgian AI cuisine? And that's the challenge, I think, for this year. bringing everything together, because everything is there. We will have regulation, we will have our tools, we have our data, we have people who can work with it, but they still need a lot of know-how and practical knowledge to start cooking in this kitchen. And this is the year where we get a chance to try this out. This is also the year where we really need to be careful not to make too many misbaksels, so failed recipes, because this is also the year where we have to prove that it works. Everything is there. We can start with it right now. And so that means we need to be very careful when we start cooking, right? Because we have very refined taste buds, we Belgians. All right, so how are we trying to do this in the Knowledge Center? Well, I already explained this. What are we doing at the Knowledge Center? Well, we are the central hub for legal, social, and ethical aspects of data-driven and AI applications, as you can read. And what have we been trying to do? Well, we have been trying to demystify and translate what regulation and AI ethics might mean for you. And there I'm really happy that it's already been said, it's not regulation versus innovation. I would even go further. New regulation is a form of innovation. It's the same thing, just on different levels. And most people don't see it that way. And I think that's the first thing we need to get out of this world. It's this wrong assumption that regulation will always lead to an obstacle for innovation. I want to demystify this. The only way we can do this is by anticipating, and this is what the great people from CITIB, KU Leuven, have been doing in our Knowledge Center. They've been creating policy prototypes. Yes, like AI prototypes, you can also create policy prototypes, and we should do that a lot more. This is agile development, where we try to look at what if the regulation is entirely finished, what would it look like, and what can we do with it? And does this make sense? I think that last question is the most important one. Can we test a prototype in a real-world setting and then still say, yes, everything makes sense, all the legal requirements are feasible? That's one of the things we're trying to do, and I think this anticipation is really important. It's not something lawmakers do that often, but we should do it more. Next, and I think here a lot of things come together. We don't only need to break down the walls between universities, we also need to break down the walls between regions. Together with Fari, we worked on the Ally Toolbox, a toolbox where we try to translate AI ethics and governance into a roadmap wizard, if you want, a roadmap handbook that helps you to think about what should my AI governance in my organization look like. We have all the building blocks there, and the nice thing is they are already a combination between Brussels and Flemish efforts. Everything is published under a very open license, so I hope that if someone feels the need to do this again in French, that they simply can translate our website, because everything is open. Sharing recipes is really important if we want a good food to be tasted by everyone. Good, that brings me to the last part. What else are we doing? The proof of the pudding is in the eating, and we can only eat or taste whether something is good by putting it on the ground, by really applying it. Where have we been doing this? I think amai is really important. Amai, which is a Dutch exclamation of amazement, and also one of the only words in Dutch where AI doesn't sound strange. We work together with citizens and with Civil, that's the Knowledge Center on Citizen Science. And what we do is actually we bring a lot of Flemish citizens together to think about societal challenges. Once we lure them in, we then give them a primer on AI, because our goal is to make people enthusiastic about AI who are a priori not interested in AI. So that's one of the Mission Impossibles we really try to work on every year. We let them think about how big societal challenges can be solved with AI. They get to create projects once they understand what AI is. And next, we have an open call where NGOs, SMEs, and researchers work together in a few projects. Like this year, we have 3, where we actually apply these things in reality. Why is that important? I already told you, cooks are really important, but cooks need people to eat their food. And that's also important. We really need to invest in consumers, in citizens, feeling that AI really is one of these new flavors they need to test because it will enhance their lives. That's what AMAI is all about, creating these projects that inspire and demystify what AI can mean in their lives and how it can be a very meaningful change. All right? So, all these food metaphors, I have a few more. I already told you, I think it's really important that we share as many recipes as possible between the regions. That also means in Flanders, for example, that we are working more and more, not only from our AI research program, but also with Digital Vlaanderen. I think breaking down these walls and making sure that there are a lot of moments to share our knowledge are really important. Something else we need to train on, and I think that's really difficult, especially in Belgium, is sharing our misbaksels. We will fail. I mean, in innovation, you need to be happy if 10% of your tryout projects actually make it into something sustainable. I don't see any failed projects in Belgium. We don't talk about them. I know we are very ashamed to admit when we do something wrong, but we need to, because you have a moral obligation that other regions and other consortia don't invent the same misbaksel you just created. We're not doing that, so I really hope that we start doing that soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Very inspiring to see also that the different regions inspire each other. And now we have the honor and the great pleasure to welcome Lucy Scioli, Director of the AI Office. Thank you, Lucy, for having accepted to close this opening ceremony. Is it okay?
Okay, but how does that get transmitted there? Yeah. Okay. Good morning. Pardon? It's on both sides. Not there, not behind you. But it's on that side. Okay, I see. Thank you very much. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's really an honor to be here at this launch today. And as you know, I come from the European AI Office, which is a newly created office in the European Commission, in particular in the department called DG Connect. And this is an office which has the objective of managing the artificial intelligence policies of the European Union. In particular, we want artificial intelligence to be developed and to be used in the European Union. And so we do recognize that artificial intelligence is very important technology for our life, but it is also important for our competitiveness, it is important for our security, and it is imperative that the European Union steps up in the development and in the use of AI. This means that we, for example, give a lot of importance to trust, which is not, as it was also highlighted before, in contradiction with the idea that we think that innovation is important. We think that people must trust the technology. The technology has a number of negative connotations that we can read very often in the press, but it's not because of that. It can be a black box, and therefore we have to be careful with the use of this technology in certain contexts. But this is not inconsistent with the idea of wanting to provide innovation and capabilities in the development of the technology itself. And actually, if we want to have innovation in the European Union in this technology, we want to have a certain demand for this technology, so we want people to trust it. If people trust it, people, and I mean businesses and organizations trust it, they will use it. And of course, this will offer also incentives for innovation. So just to start my talk, to say basically what was said by the previous speaker, that innovation and regulation, because then of course the European Union has an AI Act, that it is implementing, in our opinion, go hand in hand. And that's why the European AI Office was created in the European Commission to be responsible for both policies, because these policies, implementation of regulation and innovation policy, are not policies in contradictions, but are policies that need to feed each other. And this European Commission talks a lot about artificial intelligence. It started all with a Draghi report that is actually well known, and which identified the difference between the economic performance of the European Union and the United States, giving a lot of importance to the slow diffusion and production of digital technologies in the European Union relative to the United States. According to the Draghi report, about half of the productivity growth of difference between United States and European Union is actually explained by the slow adoption and development of digital technologies. And AI is a particularly important technology because, in particular, when we talk about generative AI, for example, we are talking about technology that is relatively new in the sense that it can offer new economic opportunities. And that means that if we we can use this technology. The technology represents a very important potential for our economy to boost its competitiveness, because there is space for doing that. We know that the European Union is, economically speaking, has been traditionally strong in certain industrial sectors, and then we think that if we could really apply AI and generative AI to our industrial sectors, we can really find an important source of competitiveness that our economies really need. And then I don't have to hide the fact that nowadays AI is also very important for our security. This is an important element we cannot forget the moment we talk about artificial intelligence, because in, unfortunately, the wars that are being fought today, not only artificial intelligence plays a very important role, either because it's attached to drones or because it's used to forecast and anticipate and predict certain situations on the battlefield. It is, in any case, a technology that can bring also in the future important elements to our own security, and therefore it becomes increasingly important that we are able not only to develop AI, but also to make sure that we can access it in our continent, and that we are not dependent on other parts of the world, in particular on the development of AI. Many people would think, well, the European Union is nowhere in the development of AI. Everybody knows it's China and the United States, and it's exactly, that's why it's so important also as a geopolitical tool. But in reality, the European Union has some instruments. Not only we have a lot of engineers, and we have excellence in the European Union for the development of technology, but we also have a lot of startups that are developing very powerful models, and that these models are actually being increasingly applicable in businesses. And many of these startups will also tell you that their developments are so-called trustworthy, in the sense that they respect copyright law, they respect GDPR, they give the possibility to keep also data in the European Union through different solutions. And therefore, that opens the door to the fact that we can start our further advancements in AI from a very good basis. And that's why you may have heard our Vice President Virkkunen speaking about an AI continent and the fact that Europe can be an AI continent. And truly speaking, we have a lot of talent and a lot of capabilities for doing that. We just have to be able to organize ourselves in a way that this talent and these capabilities can develop what is needed. So one of the main things that we need to do is to make sure that we have an appropriate infrastructure that we make available for these developments. And the second element and the second thing we have to do is to make sure that once we develop AI and we have important models of AI, then these models are actually used by our businesses and by our organizations in different sectors of the economy. So we are not starting from scratch, not only because we have talent and excellence in the European Union, but also because in the past years, we have organized a number of enablers at the level of the European Union, which can actually help us in the development and the uptake of AI. So, for example, we have a large network of supercomputers, and these are public supercomputers, which are at the moment being organized into what we call AI factories, which means these are powerful supercomputers that are getting an increasing number of GPUs, which are accelerators for artificial intelligence, and they are improving their capabilities. And they will also be offering services, for example, training and also linking to data centers. And this is very important. This is going to be scattered across the European territory, but companies from all the countries can access the supercomputers. And as I said, they will have greater capacity in the future. So even if moments like now there is a bit of an excess demand, but this will be addressed with the progress that is being made. At the same time, we have created a network of digital innovation hubs, for example, which will help companies, in particular SMEs, to adopt artificial intelligence. And there are European digital innovation hubs spread in all the regions of the European Union, of course, a very important number also in Belgium. But at the same time, as we need to create this infrastructure and we need to stimulate the adoption of artificial intelligence, we are also looking at the implementation of the Artificial Intelligence Act. As I was saying, which in my previous slide, was really one important element of our ecosystem. Because as I was saying earlier, for us, this is an enabler of trustworthy AI, which remains a very important branding also for European artificial intelligence. And in the AI office, we started implementing the act, which has been in force since August 2024. The rules are applicable at different points in time. For a moment, we have rules on prohibiting a very limited number of applications of artificial intelligence in the European Union, which started applying in February this year. And these are the first rules that actually apply for the AI Act, simply because the co-legislators thought that these systems and the applications of these artificial intelligence systems, for example, social scoring or subliminal manipulation of people's behavior, were considered to be so non-tolerant that we couldn't have them in the European Union for much longer. So this is the first set of rules that started to apply. Now, what we are trying to do on the side of the AI office is to provide as much information and clarification as possible about the different rules that we have. We published guidelines on the definition of AI systems. We published guidelines on the prohibitions. And soon we will be publishing more guidelines. In the future, it's going to be in particular in relation to the rules that will be applicable to general purpose AI systems. These are very large systems, like kind of generative AI systems. We are discussing a code of practice with developers of AI, as well as with civil society organizations and other industry, to make sure that we clarify how the providers of these general purpose AI systems have it clear how to comply with the obligations of the AI Act. So this is a kind of co-regulatory effort. But on top of that, we will also provide guidance on certain elements in terms of the definition, for example, of general purpose systems and so on. So through guidance, we intend to offer increasingly more clarity and legal certainty to the practitioners on the ground. And secondly, we also reach out as much as possible to enterprises. We have an exercise called the AI Pact, where companies sign up to anticipate the implementation of the AI Act, not because we go and check, but because we want to have a feedback from the companies to know what it is that is difficult to implement, and also to collect best practices that we spread out to many other companies who participate to a very large number of webinars and explanations that we are trying to give online to those who subscribe to the AI Pact. But the AI Act, as I said, it's an important element of our AI continent because we want our AI to be trusted and to be safe. And this doesn't mean that we don't want to have innovation. We do want to have innovation. We want to support the development of the most advanced AI models, and we want to boost the adoption. Now, to support the development of the models, I said earlier, it's very important to have the infrastructure available. This is a big difference we may have with the United States, where providers of these very large models normally get, for example, a dedicated amount of computing power from the cloud providers. In Europe, it doesn't work like this, but through our public network of supercomputers, we make computing capacity available to everyone. And we are now changing the access mode to the supercomputers so that it's easier for the startups to access this computing capacity. We have also announced gigafactories for the future, meaning that we would like to have in Europe very small numbers of very powerful computers with data storage, data centers basically. So we will be telling more about this particular initiative soon. On the 9th of April, we will publish an AI continent strategy, or communication, as we say in jargon, in the European Commission, and there will be more details about our activities in that particular field. And then next year we'll come with the Cloud and Development Act, because even if we have the supercomputers, we may still need to have the cloud for sovereign reasons, for example, for the public administration, and that's also going to be a very important element to address. For what concerns the adoption of AI, today only 13% and something of enterprises use AI, so it's very important for our competitiveness to make sure that our companies and our organizations make use of the opportunities offered by AI. And we are launching a public consultation first, but also a number of dialogues with different sectors of the economy to get their views on the main barriers and challenges to the adoption of AI. I'm sure I receive a lot of comments on the regulation, but we also want to know about challenges, for example, in the area of data, in the area of computing power, what skills, what more can we do to support the developments and the adoption of AI in different sectors. This is the content of another strategy, the Apply AI strategy, that we will present in September this year, and where we really want to identify concrete actions to stimulate the adoption of AI in industrial sectors, but also in the public sector. I already mentioned the fact that we will launch soon a public consultation. This is going to be in April. And then we will launch dialogues with key strategic sectors, both at the technical and the political level. In the meanwhile, we are consulting member states to facilitate, to see which actions we should carry out to facilitate the adoption by the public sector. All our activities, I know they are many. I mentioned AI Continent, Apply AI. I hope I didn't confuse you all with all these names, but these are the key terminologies that you will hear this year. You can find everything online. Be aware that on the 9th of April, we will come with our first action plan, the AI Continent, and so I'll be happy to exchange even more with you at that point in time on the basis of that proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Scioli, for your very inspiring content. And I think from Belgium, we are very much looking forward to working together with your office. We're also coming to the end of this opening session for this AI week. There's only time for me now to say thank you for being here and wishing very good luck with all the different sessions we've been setting up. I hope to see a lot of you soon in one or the other session. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Merci à tous pour votre participation aujourd'hui. We will now take a 5-minute break to set up the room for a keynote by Bart Bex, followed by a fascinating debate with as title Innovation versus Regulation, Unlocking Europe's AI Future and Competitiveness. For this panel, we have invited toppers such as Nathalie Smua, Davio Larnaud, Ferdinand Casier, Mona Caroline Chamas, Antoine-Alexandre André from the European Commission. And this panel will be moderated by Ségolène Martin. You are more than welcome to stay. And do not forget that as a participant, you are also welcome to the reception on Thursday. Ségolène, I let you the floor now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for staying with us. You have a 5-minute break, and you're welcome to come back a bit later. We would be expecting you.
Yeah, Natasha doing. Natasha. Please join the room. Yeah. Hello, hello. The debate shall begin. So people in the room, just come in the conference room. Yeah, it's weird. They cannot hear me. Okay. Sorry.
Thank you. Sometimes we need people to take things in their hands. Yes, for staying or for joining us, and thanks for as well to the people who are online with us today. This is the second part of the opening of this EU and Belgian AI Week, and as you know by now very well, our topic is innovation and regulation, unlocking Europe AI future and competitiveness. So we have a lot of this to discuss. Some of it has been discussed already. I'd like to start by posing a question. Are we at a
decisive turning point where our actions will shape the future, or are the dice already cast? Today we are going to discuss a lot of challenges and a lot of questions. Many people have opinions, not everyone has the answer to. What is the interplay between AI innovation and regulation, of course? This is the core. What is the position of Europe and what is the position of Belgium in this whole international game? And is and are the policy decisions that have been taken, that are going to be taken again in the future, empower or constrain our ability to keep in pace and keep keep pace with international developments? So what are these developments? We heard a lot about them. ChatGPT is not so old, but it has taken us by storm a few years ago. In the meantime, we've had two Nobel Prizes attributed to researchers which made breakthrough in artificial intelligence. We've had the recently announced US Stargate initiative with $500 billion to be invested in AI. We have DeepSeek, we have spoken about it already. In the meantime, a question we may ask ourselves is this acceleration beneficial? Is it something we want? There are voices, and we should certainly acknowledge them as well. In the world of artificial intelligence and policy and regulation, including some of the godfathers of the AI who advocate for slowing down the pace and thinking back about what we want to do and what is the regulation we want to set in place. So this is not, there is a certain hesitation, and of course different voices go in different directions. Another question we may want to ask our panelists today, so we have some really interesting panelists with us, is how can Europe keep pace with this acceleration? And are we keeping pace already? Or, as I said at the beginning, have the dice been cast already? Of course, we have Mistral, we have Anthropic, we have a lot of super interesting tech startups and scale-ups. We have the European initiatives, and for example, the Invest AI initiative we have heard a bit about. Maybe we will hear a bit more about it later. Is it enough? Is the AI Act supporting innovation? Is the AI Act going in another direction? This is a question we may want to ask ourselves. And we should not forget that an element we haven't really spoken about a lot today, but I hope maybe that some of our panelists will want to speak about it, is investment. Europe, and Belgium will maybe hear about Belgium, but at least Europe is a bit lagging behind compared to the US and China in terms of AI investment. So what are we going to do? Do we want to bridge the gap? This is also related to technological sovereignty, and you may have not missed rather that we have a new president in the United States, and he has taken firm criticisms against he has made the AI regulation rather a topic of contention between Europe and the US administration because he perceives that we are, and Europe is making unfair treatment of US tech companies. So we have a lot of this to discuss, and fortunately we have the right voices among us to discuss it today. So congratulations and thank you for staying. We are going really to explore an important question, and I think we want people to enlighten us with their experience, with their opinions. And the question we are going to ask ourselves today is, are we going in the right direction in Europe, or are we shooting ourselves in the foot? So this is a question we want honest answers, and we will have hopefully a lot of debate. But to start with, in order to enlighten us, we have the honor to welcome Mr. Bart Beeks, who is at the intersection between a lot of things, including policy and business, but I'm going to tell you exactly who Bart is. Bart is a Belgian tech pioneer and innovator, with a focus on enabling acceleration and governance in high-growth ventures. Bart is also on the board of the EIC, which stands for the European Innovation Council. He's a co-founder at Bicentral, that we know very well in Brussels, an investor in a series of startups, and also in Syndicate One. Previously, Bart was CEO of Skynet, which is now Proximus, chairman of iMinds, IMEC, and executive chairman of Euractiv Media Network, which has been recently acquired by Media House. So, Bart, thank you so much for being with us today. And Bart is going to tell us about the specific question. This following question: is a different mindset the key enabler to win the AI race in Europe and Belgium? Thank you, Bart.
Hi, everyone. When Ségolène and Nathanael asked me, can you give a couple of words for introduction and make it fast? I said, the words of introduction I can do, but being from Limburg, fast will be a bit more complicated. Is the mindset something that we have to take into account? About 15 years ago, after that we did the Skynet journey, I moved to the US, and I remember coming back. And one of the first conference I attended when I moved back here to Brussels was at the European Parliament. And there was an entire debate about innovation in Europe and what it would mean. And I remember, unfortunately, they filmed it, that they asked me the question, well, Bart, now coming back from Silicon Valley and being entrepreneur, what should Europe do? And my answer at the time was, just move out of the way. And that was actually what I meant at the time. I do believe that we come now in a completely different phase where policy or regulation, business and startups all come together, and we absolutely need policy and regulation to be competitive in Europe and also in Belgium for that sake. Times have changed. Usually, if you look at ecosystems, they look at 5 players in that ecosystem. Policy, we talked about that, research, and then the business side. And the business side usually are investors, startups, and corporates. And those 3 have always been quite separated. Business is one, research and universities is another one, and policy is a third one. But for the first time in the last 10 years, and now I think we are a bit at the highest point ever, both policy and business and even research have come very close together. In the US, we all talk about Musk and Trump, but also the person in charge of AI and crypto is an investor. So suddenly you have the business who is pushing and driving the regulation. With a lot of objection to it, but it will only increase in the years to come. So that's a very high impact of business on the way policy and regulation has been steered. And in China, you have the opposite. Most companies, all research and all regulation is state-steered. The state owns the companies, the state invests, the state is the ownership of most companies. That makes that in Europe, we have to find our way. And it's clear that with alliances being a bit different, we really have to find our way because all 3 will reinforce each other. Personally, Ségolène said I'm a bit into and the policy and the investing and in the entrepreneurship. Policy has a very negative name and unfortunately often correct. For a lot of people, policy often meant rules and documents and regulations and things that do not help anybody to build. And I think we talk about mindset of entrepreneurs and investors. I also think we have to change the mindset of people who do policy. Policy is not just protecting assets from the past. Policy is also making sure that we build the path towards the future. that entrepreneurs can be entrepreneurs, that investors can be investors, that researchers can be researchers, and that policy makes it easier to be competitive and to be stronger in a domain. That's a mind shift that we absolutely need. How can we do that? You probably all heard of this Draghi report that says a lot of things: less regulation and invest basically 800 billion to make up. I also think that there's a couple of, following the Draghi report you have now, it's something called the European Competitiveness Compass, which van der Leyen announced. And there's a couple of things that are being in implementation that I really like. For example, we're finally making sure that stock options and stuff like that is going to be easy to deal with because it's too complicated for what it's being done. We're setting up something called the 28 regime. It will be implemented in January. It basically means that if you're an entrepreneur now and you start a company in Belgium and you want to hire people in Germany, you have to set up a German entity because you have to abide to German labor law. We're now setting up something which is called the 28 regime, which means that you can set up a European company, somewhat comparable to what the US has with Delaware. That's going to be so much easier for a lot of people to scale. There's other elements like innovation procurement. We should oblige everybody working at the government, like in the US, to work with startups. Very often we give grants, but having a contract with startups working for government would do so much better because it would mean a contract and afterwards they would find other investments. There's also stuff that startups should do to be able to work with larger corporations and to work with government, but we should just impose, like the Netherlands, where pension funds and government have to invest in startups and they have to work with startups. Making commercial contracts like that is really incredibly valuable. And thirdly, I also think that we should be a bit more optimistic and getting European talent back. I see that in the US, you will have a bit of the downfall of what they call the science talent. People really want to leave. And also, it's full of Europeans who also want to help. We're talking a lot about attracting people into Europe and into Belgium and even into Brussels, but getting the ones that are European, everybody wants to contribute. A lot of people want to come here. And so with the current change of mind and the what's happening with Trump, but also what's happening a bit in the East, that's an unbelievable opportunity for Europe, but also for Belgium to attract top talent and to be a very, to have a winning mindset. Especially for AI, I believe that policy will be crucial. And the reason is that the market of AI is somewhat different than the rest of the tech market. Usually, out of research come startups, and those startups are funded by venture capital, and then afterwards companies grow, and then corporates come into place, and they go to a stock market or they keep on growing. The AI market is a bit different. If you look at the main investment into startups, it's not venture capital. Venture capital in the US is a bit in an existential crisis. Most of the important AI investments are being done by the largest tech companies. The so-called Magnificent Seven, Microsoft and Meta and Google and all of them, they are the main investors. Amazon announced last week that they would keep on investing in Anthropic for $4 billion. That's Amazon saying that they will invest $4 billion in another company. And so it's the big corporations that are doing the investment. And on top of that, those corporations have access to data. To do AI, we have to train the data. Where is the data? Well, it's with Google, and it's on Grok, and it's on with Amazon. So they also own the data. And if that's not enough, they also have the distribution platforms. Microsoft invests in OpenAI, and once that a feature works, they suddenly distribute it with Word or Excel. And suddenly, the next day, they have 50 million users. Or they embed it into Copilot. And so we have a structural disadvantage, and I believe that it can only be balanced. Somebody has a call. I think it can only be balanced by policy. Because we will not have these large corporations to invest or to distribute. So we need to find the balance in a different way. A second small part is EIC. What is it? In Europe, we have a lot of EIs, European Investment Bank and Fund and D and F and C and whatever. It's basically the first time that they set up a structure to invest directly into startups. So what we do is, with EIC, we have a somewhat considerable fund. So it's a 10 billion budget group where we focus on deep tech. So there's always a research. Deep tech means that there's a research component in it, and we invest in 3 phases. The research, we invest in the transition from research to companies and into scaling, and 1/3 of our budget, so about 3.5 billion, we invest in companies that are scaling. So over the last nearly 3 years, we've done a bit over 300 equity investment, so where we invest into shares, and then I think 1,200 or something grants where we fund research and others. We just launched one additional element. Normally we could only invest up to 10 million per company, but we just increased it to 30 million per company. And we've set up what we call Trusted Investor Network, meaning that the amounts that we invest are practically quadrupled with a network of co-investors. So that means that 30 million in a 25% round, that's 120 million to be invested into scale-ups that's covering at least some of them. Why is EIC, or the way that EIC works, interesting is that first, I like a lot that we do direct investment, not only into structures or supporting, but direct equity investing, and where government can take part of that place. You see that in every country where it works well, government investment is taking part of this missing corporate investing schedule that we have. And secondly, I like the fact that we do governance with external people. Our board is 20 people. There's 1 per European region, basically, but it's all people. Some have a policy or research background, but some are investors and some are entrepreneurs. So it's a different way of dealing with initiatives. We often say Europe regulates too much, but you know, if it's full of politicians, that is what they do and what they do well. So you have to mix it up so that regulation becomes a bit more market-oriented and that it supports and that it understands entrepreneurs. And that can only be done when you change the composition of it. And then lastly, we talked a bit about what could Europe do, but maybe there's also something what Belgium could do. Because we're in Belgium also in a fairly interesting moment. If you look at the evolution of an innovation ecosystem, well, it needed some time. 20 years ago, we once celebrated Netlog was this kind of social network comparable to Facebook or something. I was part of that board of guiding a young team, and we once raised 5 million, and that was like all the headquarters. It was all the headlines on the newspapers. A Belgian startup raised 5 million euro, and 2 weeks later, Facebook, who did the same, raised 200 million. So we knew, like, okay, basically it's game over. So it was a short celebration period. We've come quite a while. There is something called the entrepreneurial mafias. It's not what you think it is, but the entrepreneurial mafias is basically groups of people that are entrepreneurs or investors together, and who once that they are successful, they just do it again. It became known by something called the PayPal mafia, because it was 23 people, I think, but 2 of them founded YouTube, and 1 of them founded Yelp, and 1 of them did LinkedIn. And so afterwards, they keep on building stuff. And we are now in a period in Belgium that we also have it. It's a bit illustrated around Bicentral in Brussels, around the Winter Circus, which is a new venue in Ghent, and that's great. People are finding each other so that ambitious talent is supported. Now, I also think that policy could do a couple of things. One is focus. I'm always a bit afraid if I see long ministerial titles, but it only means that we often groups have to structure themselves to get things done. I really like the fact that if you take at the European level, there's now Ekaterina Zahareva. It's a commissioner in charge of research, innovation, and startups. There's a commissioner with the startups title with startups in her title. That will never happen again, or I don't think it will happen again. But we have really to use that and to build on that. She's here in Brussels all the time. In France, we have Clara Chapas, who is now Secretary of State of AI. You know, that's really committed and dedicated focus. And we have to find a way, even if in Flanders and Belgium, all these things are structured differently, having a focus so that we can support the entrepreneurs a lot, that would help us a lot. And then I'm going to do it quickly, but we have to boost AI research. We need an AI institute in Belgium. You know, we had iMind and iMac, but clearly that doesn't work in the way it's set up. So we could build out an institute that is successful but committed on AI, and it cannot be done from one of the existing structures. We should indeed invest and give compute to startups. If you want to have the compute, you should just be able to rent it. We were able to buy a lot of things for all countries in COVID. Why not do it for compute on AI? It's the same kind of structure. And I think Belgium and Brussels specifically should be an AI policy leader in Europe. If people say, where are you from, Bart, Brussels, they think that I live in the European Parliament. I say, no, that's actually people that live there. But we have that. We have the fact that policy has an impact on business, and it will be like that for the next 10 years. AI is the biggest change that we'll know, and we are in Brussels. So let's use it to say, well, if you come to Brussels, that's where policy and tech meet each other, and where you also have the great entrepreneurs like Superlinear, who will be speaking here later, and where companies that are ambitious, that you can meet them and that you can develop with them. And lastly, there was something that I read in the weekend that I found really great. It is that how the youngsters are using AI. There was a report out that it's, and I wrote it down, 70% of 18 to 25-year-olds use AI constantly, and half of the 25 or 35. But even more impressive is that 13% of youngsters between 18 and 25 pay for their usage. They have a subscription to use OpenAI, or I don't know which one it is. I don't even have kids. I have one of 70-year-old. Before he gives out 20 euro to anything, you know, he complains all the time that a glass of water costs more than €1.50 in Brussels Center. Before they give that out, it means that they really believe in it. So we have a generation coming up who reflects differently. I noticed that compared to my son, at a certain moment, you know, and I think it counts for many of us, is we have a problem, we think, how can we apply AI to help us, and you get a solution. But these youngsters take AI as a reflection starting point. Plus, they're interested in it, and I think I would really bet on that. And so if we can do that in Belgium, Brussels, build on all these elements, build on a positive mindset where everybody contributes, and have a lot of youngsters together with us a little bit less youngsters sometimes, I believe a lot in that. And I think with that, I think we have a great panel now to go a bit deeper into that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you for this enlightening keynote speech. And now I have the pleasure to call our panel speakers, starting with Davio. Davio Larnaut is the CEO and co-founder of Superlinear, with a French accent, but Superlinear with a better accent, hopefully, an advisory firm helping enterprises achieve transformative productivity gains through strategic AI initiatives. With over a decade of experience guiding complex AI-driven transformations, Davio is known for his pragmatic insights into turning AI investments into measurable business impact. Please, Davio, you can join us. Welcome. You can welcome, Davio. And now I have the pleasure to call Nathalie Smouha, who is a legal scholar and a philosopher at the KU Leuven Faculty of Law, where she examines legal and ethical questions around AI and other digital technologies. Her research focuses particularly on AI's impact on human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. She is a member of the Leuven AI Institute and the Digital Society Institute, and the academic coordinator of the KU Leuven Summer School on the Law, Ethics and Policy of AI. So welcome, Nathalie, and please join us on stage. And now I have the pleasure to call Mona, who was sitting near Nathalie. Mona Caroline Chamas is an attorney, a director of Govern and Law, serving businesses and governments in the ethics, governance, and impact of innovation and AI. She is an appointed expert on the AI Ethics Committee to the Belgian government and the French Space Agency, the CNES. She lectures ethics and compliance at La Sorbonne and EDEC Business School, and she co-founded the Whistleblowing Center, which handles companies' pick-up lines and investigations into potential breaches and innovation dilemmas. Please join us on stage, Mona. Welcome. And followed by Antoine-Alexandre André. Antoine-Alexandre André is a legal and policy officer working for the European AI Office of the European Commission. He is one of the lead members of the team responsible for AI innovation and policy coordination, coordinating the work of the AI Office, monitoring national strategies and dealing with EDIHH. Ooh, you will help us with acronyms because we spoke about the EIF, EIB, so another acronym, TFs and AI regulatory sandboxes. Among others, he has been involved in the AI Act negotiation process and is still with us today after these years and months of negotiations and in activities supporting its implementation. Antoine-Alexandre is now working as one of the main designers of the next Commission communication on AI, which will be called the AI Continent Action Plan, and the future EU AI strategy, Apply AI strategy. So we are very lucky to have you with us today. Welcome, Antoine-Alexandre. And last but not least, Ferdinand Cazir, who is a senior business group leader for digital at Agoria since 2018, and who has been a key driver of AI adoption in Belgium. You are working closely with the Belgian region, and you have led impactful programs that help businesses integrate AI technologies, driving innovation and strengthening the country AI ecosystem. So thank you and welcome to everyone for this exciting debate and exciting topic. So the question you have is both simple but possibly very difficult to answer. Do you think we are doing things well, or are we shooting ourselves in the foot? It was voluntarily a bit question to sparkle debate. And you will all be invited first to tell us for 5 minutes about your point of view, or maybe some of jumping on the element of the other speakers. Just ask you to stick a bit to the timing, so we have time to the follow-up and to the questions later on. Maybe, Davio, you were first on stage. Do you have some first thoughts to share with us?
Okay, this works. First thoughts. So I was very happy to see this morning the session that the AI versus innovation versus regulation was turned into innovation and regulation. I think that's a good starting point. I think for about a year, Europe has been screaming, we regulate. So I think that's nice that we are moving towards innovation. And I also noticed that a lot of people saw AI is important. Bart mentioned it clearly as well. But I want to put a few things into perspective which I didn't really hear this morning, or which I don't really see in action, which is a bit where the things happen. You can talk a lot about things, but it's when things start moving that it becomes interesting. And what I saw, or what I'm not seeing, so first of all, innovation, to put it into perspective. If you look at, I'm thinking, how far will I go back? I think we all agree we want to have opportunities and oxygen for everyone, which basically means we need a strong economy. If you have a strong economy, you need strong companies. So far, pretty easy. If you want a strong economy, all companies have a set of basic ingredients. Coming back to the cooking, all companies have a set of basic ingredients, which boils down to energy, labor, capital, and natural resources. That's basically the 4 things that everybody needs to cook with. If you look at energy, we have a big problem. We're extremely expensive here in Europe. I'll come back to that later. And what is extremely expensive? Let's say we're 10 times more expensive in Europe, in Belgium, than, for instance, in Qatar, or 5 times as expensive as the US. So one basic ingredient of what we want to do is extremely expensive. Now, what is happening with AI and innovation is the labor part. What is actually happening is you split them up in 2, which is physical labor and intelligence. Those are the 2 components of what is called labor. And what we're seeing is with AI, the cost of intelligence is dramatically decreasing. That's basically it. Intelligence becomes cheap. What we see with robotics is that physical labor becomes cheap. So both of the 2 of the main ingredients of what we want to have in the future become extremely cheap. That's what's happening. Now, what have we seen with energy? We probably have all noticed the energy crisis. Why is that? Because we are not independent, because we are dependent on other energy. We pay a premium price on energy. So what is happening with AI, and definitely with our orange friend on the other side of the sea, is that we are exposed to a huge risk if we don't own that intelligence that becomes very cheap and a basic component of our economy. So why am I all saying this? We have an $11 trillion gap on GDP level, US compared to Europe. This is a basic ingredient of the future of humanity, of anything economy. And I just heard that we don't basically have a budget on the federal government if it comes to AI specifically. Then I wonder, do they really understand the importance of these things? These are vital for our society and for the future of our kids and everyone around here. So I agree with innovation and regulation, but the question is, what's the priority? And another point to add to that is, for the regulation part, I like the AI Act. That's the first time I'm saying this out loud. Because of the idea, which is, let's start from high risk. Let's start from risk-based approach. We attack the risks. If you boil it down, there's 2 categories which are relevant. It's the basically the low risk, lower than high risk is not so interesting because what they are asking is just simple. Then you have the things we cannot do, which are also clear, which I also agree with. But then the interesting part starts if you look at the high risk one, which basically has 2 subtopics, which is based on application and which is based on how much compute you have used to create it. Now, on the application level, we can have a very big debate on that as well. I'll skip that for now. You can ask me later if you want. On the frontier models, or the general AI, general purpose AI, I'm not sure what the exact wording is in the AI Act anymore, but basically what they say is as of 10 to the 25th flops, so compute power, then it becomes high risk. I don't understand that. The problem there is there's an indirect correlation, not causation, between compute power and the impact of the AI. I understand where they come from while doing that, but in reality, if you put it into action, it's absurd. And the reason is because it was made pre-understanding. It's made pre-understanding what the impact of AI is and how it's evolving. And what I think, and was Rob Heijman who presented from Kennis Center, Kennis Centrum Data and Maatschappij, was a really good idea. It's the policy prototyping part. We have to change the way we do legislation. That's the point there. And also, again, what is the priority? The priority, in my opinion, is staying competitive and then finding regulation to help us, not the other way around.
Thank you. That's a great intro to the topic. And I'm sure Nathalie will have reflections on that topic. Nathalie.
Thank you. I have a few reflections, but congratulations on saying that you actually like the AI Act. That's not something I would have heard. I actually take issue with a lot of its points. I've written a very critical article about the AI Act, but I also think it's a good thing that it's there. Okay, so for my few minutes, what I wanted to do is really focus on the topic, the title of the panel, because when Nathanael first mentioned the title, I think there was no question mark. It was really posed as innovation versus regulation, as if it's an existing trade-off. And we already heard from many speakers today that that framing does not seem to match reality. And it's also a narrative that suits certain parties very well, namely parties who don't want to be regulated at all for reasons that we should not agree to. So I'll just focus on these two words and unpack them a little bit, and then take it from there. Why do we care about innovation? We don't care about innovation as such. We care about innovation because it's a tool to help us get a more prosperous society, a more prosperous economy, and a more prosperous society, not just at the level of society at large, but also at the individual level. Right? It's individual freedom, individual prosperity, and society. And it's the same reason why we want to have AI. We don't want to do a race to AI in order to have AI. We believe in investing in AI and developing it because it brings us societal benefits. And that's what we're after. So there is innovation and there is innovation. And we're after the good kind of innovation, right? And just, I tried to come up with a silly, but, maybe a helpful example. Let's say that I can come up with a kind of innovation that enables me to read all of your minds while I'm sitting from here. And if anyone right now has maybe a negative thought about my dress, I can make it so with innovation that instantly you feel immense pain. It can be a very interesting innovation, but probably not something we would want. Yeah? And that's why we're also thinking about making sure that the kind of innovations that we're coming up with fit into our framework of values. And so let me then move to regulation. Why do we care about regulation? It's organizing society, and it's reflecting the values we care about. And there are many different ways in which we can regulate. The market regulates, social norms regulate, and then you have regulation through law. And law has a specific function in liberal democratic societies. It's a tool that we adopt, in principle, through democratically elected parliaments. It's basically the people speaking about the values that they care about and giving shape. And these don't have to be necessarily negative or protective values. It can also be facilitating values. Right? On the one hand, you have something like the AI Act, which has as a main tool to protect fundamental rights. But think about a law that Belgium could adopt to facilitate migration of people that are experts in AI and attract them. Right? This is also something you do through law. You can't do it through another means. So this is very important. Yeah? Now, preventing harms is a very important function of law because it's a way in which we protect our values. And by now, even though there might be aspects about AI that we don't fully understand, we do understand that they can cause harm because we've seen many examples of it. I'm just going to mention, the Dutch childcare benefit scandal in which, people had to give away their children or committed suicide until we found out that there were problems with the discriminating algorithm. Think about deep fakes. There are many beneficial applications, but they're also being used for free to undress women on a large scale. Think about chatbots that can be great, but they can also be very manipulative. And there was an event about that recently here in the same room. Now the problem is there is good regulation, there is bad regulation, just like there is good innovation and bad innovation. So we want both, but we want good innovation and good regulation. And that's the difficult part to get right. On either side of the equation, it's not always easy to have good innovation, just that it's not easy to have good regulation. And of course, if you don't want to be regulated because you're only focused, for instance, on profits and don't care about, the societal impact of your innovation, you will say, oh, regulation is bad, or this regulation is bad. It's an easy target, but it's too simplistic. So the conclusion is we need both, but we need both of them in a good manner. They need each other, but in a good way. Now, I'll just say one more word about the AI Act. So as I said, I have been critical about it for different reasons, but I'm also proud that Europe has been bold enough to adopt it. And it's easy to criticize something that exists. Most countries don't have anything you can criticize because they don't even have an AI Act. And it does reflect certain values that the EU cares about. And it will stifle some types of innovation. It will stifle the types of innovation that ideally we don't want to have. Think about the prohibited practices. That kind of innovation we won't have in Europe. And it will also make some kind of AI systems more difficult to develop. Now, of course, having good regulation ideally means not having overly too much red tape where it shouldn't be. At the same time, if you put a product on the market that can cause harm, you also need to take responsibility for it. Think about pharmaceuticals. That's something that is heavily regulated before you can put pharmaceuticals on the market. And still, there is so much innovation in the pharmaceutical sector. So it just shows that this binary thinking, as we heard this morning, doesn't work. There is a clear tendency in the world more generally to have binary or polarizing opinions and to simplify everything. And so I really want to issue an invitation to be very specific what we talk about. The AI Act, for instance, doesn't cover all AI, even though it's called the AI Act. It's quite targeted in what it's regulating. So when we talk about regulating AI, let's be very specific. Are we talking about regulating certain machine learning applications? Are we talking about regulating certain chatbots? Let's be very specific. And when we talk about regulation, let's be specific what we talk about. Are we talking about the AI Act, the GDPR, or laws that facilitate migration of people working in the technology sector? All of that is regulation. And let's also be very specific when we talk about innovation, because not all innovation is necessarily something we have to chase. We want the type of innovation that is beneficial to society. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, your neighbor, Mona, is working as a lawyer, and you work with businesses, and you're an expert in regulation. So what do you think? What are we shooting ourselves in the foot? What do your clients tell you? What do you think we should do?
Thank you. Could you all take 5 seconds to think, according to you, what has been the main driver of innovation over the last centuries? What comes to your mind? One word. Internet, okay. I guess none of you would say law, right?
We didn't hear anyone say law. I tried well to
Usually
listen, but no.
Money, IP, internet, electricity, you name it. In fact, centuries ago, but it's still valid today, people realized that no one dared to take enough risk to innovate and to make sure that innovation would also bring progress, so societal benefits. So through law, they invented the concept of company. It is thanks to law that your company exists, of legal person, and they added to that the concept of limited liability. So it's thanks to law, which is an artificial intelligence in and of itself, so man-made intelligence, to say, if we want to go forward as a society, we need to make sure that the legal person can be different from an individual. Why? Because if you fail and you are an individual not distinct from your company, we can take your house if you have too much debt. Right? So I think it brings humility first, before criticizing law, to have a bit of memory. Now, the point is that, and I agree, of course, with Nathalie, innovation doesn't necessarily mean progress. Innovating means just making something new. And what could make the difference? Now we are entering, I would say, the second revolution. The first was to even allow people to create a company, to have limited liability, to take risks, for better or worse. And now we are at the stage of, we don't want all the worst to happen. Not to mention if the worst is being automated and automatic. So in the ethics and compliance world, what we have seen, even before the AI Act, companies calling us and saying, we want responsible innovation, but what does this mean? You know, it could also be ethics washing. So what do we put in it? And they didn't wait for the AI Act to be like, we want to innovate, we want to take risk, we want to be cool, we want to be successful, but we don't want to be the bad guys out there. Bad guys meaning, indeed, with autonomous vehicles, you can kill. With gaming, You can induce mental health issues with minors. With social networks, suicide rates increase, and so forth and so forth. So the idea is how are we going to maximize the good and to minimize the bad? And then we entered R&D rooms, right? And I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I don't plead in court and I don't write contracts. And still I'm a lawyer. So you might wonder, what am I doing? I'm busy. I have too much work and I still, take on new projects. It's always super nice. But it brings also humility to everyone. Law is not perfect. Technology is not perfect. So let's talk to one another. Both are black boxes. Law is very complicated, and technology can be very complicated too, and yet we have to find a way to make them interoperable. So it's no longer a matter of being intelligent or smarter than the other, it's a matter of intelligibility and speaking the same language. And so we enter R&D room, investment room, startup rooms, even big corporation rooms, and they tell us about their project, their AI, whether it's as a developer, as a deployer, as a user. And we start asking questions, and they're like, how are we going to code that issue? Whether it's a bias issue, a digital pollution issue, a health issue, sometimes even economic sanction issue if it goes through the wrong countries, a conflict of interest that is embedded in the algorithm. There are so many issues can be out there, such as the same issues as with technical constraints. The question is, have we asked the right questions early enough and high enough to make sure that if there are solutions for that can be embedded by design or monitored throughout the life of the AI, that it is thought through before the bad happens? And many AI people have said, we wish we heard those questions before. And sometimes it's hours, days or months later that I'm, telling them, in fact, this is law. I have just transformed law into asking you some questions. And that is what currently all laws are doing, so-called regulation. I agree they are boring to read. I agree they are hard to read. And I agree it's not fun to do red tape. And that's indeed the very annoying part of regulation. We all agree on that. Even if I'm a lawyer, I find reading the AI Act, like many other acts, super boring. If you have sleeping issues, take a piece of legislation. That said, let's be humble too. A legislator doesn't wake up being like, you know what, I want to bother the world with my stuff. No one wants to do that. And I worked on the government side as well. It's imperfect, but yet the goal there is indeed to try to help people innovate by forcing them to ask themselves the right questions early enough. And you know what? It's nothing revolutionary there. Human rights, like don't kill, don't harm people, don't discriminate, try to be equal, try to respect democracy, try to respect people's intimacy, like ethical basics, honestly. They have been there for 60 years, but everyone forgot. So now those regulations are bothering us by saying, now guys, stop forgetting about fundamental rights. Try to ask yourselves those questions early on, and then let's see how we can fix it. And in reality, what we also see is that even businesses whose core business is not AI, right? I mean, it's a very traditional industrial corporation, multinational or startup, doesn't matter. Say, only 10% of 2% of what we do is AI. Okay. But when I have, and through whistleblowing we see too, I have a corruption case or a discrimination case, often involving executives, by the way. That is one instance of corruption or discrimination in the corporation, and it takes months to address. That is one guy, one time. And by the way, you can go to prison for many years for that. With AI, if you get it wrong, you can discriminate 1 million times a day. It's automated and it's autonomous. Even if it's not your core business, you guys could face 1 million discrimination or corruption instances if you haven't thought through that carefully. And I agree, we don't need always 200 pages of text to go through that, but to narrow it down to 1 or 2 pages of the right questions to ask. And then the tricky part is not just to flag the right questions, is can we code the answers? Can we code the solutions? And that's where we're really living exciting times. The AI Act is only, I would say, confirming what we have been doing for years in companies, using human rights and other basic, I think, societal basics. So it's a fascinating era we are living in. And of course, the versus is an issue in innovation versus regulation. We could improve regulation, we could improve innovation, but both are actually working together towards progress. And progress happens first in companies, of course, with the support of governments, and many companies are trying to walk the talk. So I think that's also our role as lawyers, and I really regret that not many lawyers are actually walking that, walking that talk either, to try to make it much more intelligible, much more interoperable, and much more pragmatic.
Thank you, Anna Caroline. So we have actually the side of regulation that is extremely well represented today. Antoine Alexandre, do you feel that we are shooting ourselves in the foot, or do you think maybe that there is an unfair treatment to regulation these days and to AI regulation? What is your take on those points?
Thank you. First, I would like to actually stress that organizers made a great job in bringing some diversity in this panel. You see a bit my struggle. It's been 5 years I've been dealing with negotiations of the regulation process, but now also support to innovation. And you see that there are actually different types of stakeholders which are trying actually all to answer same types of questions, how to make sure that we respect each other, how to make sure that we promote safe types of innovation. And so that's why already, long time ago in the Commission, we have actually looked at this question, which was not a question, but rather two interconnected terms, which are innovation and regulation, where we try really to ensure, just like Lucy mentioned earlier, to ensure that regulation would support citizens in taking up what is artificial intelligence and make sure that actually we can adopt all artificial intelligence which is safe. So as we have heard actually from several panelists, there are several sides to the questions of artificial intelligence. From the very beginning, we thought in the Commission that we should be a bit bold and actually touch on these two-sided at the same time. There has been lots of attention on the AI Act and the AI Act negotiation process, notably given the fact that it was the first, as it was mentioned several times, in the world legislation touching on AI systems. But actually from 2020, even from 2018, we have been supporting also very much the innovation side. What we see in the public sphere is that this AI Act discussion has been really attracting the attention. We want now that the AI Act has been adopted last year, now that it's entering into force, we want to switch, we want to get back the attention to the innovation sides. What we have discussed in the last 4-6 years is really how to make the AI systems put on the internal market safe. Now that we have these rules in place, we want to get back to the fact that we need to support, to ensure that actually our different stakeholders can provide these trustworthy systems into citizens which will take them because they know there is regulation backing their rights. There is legislation which is getting a bit into more details of all the ethical principles that already exist around AI and digitalization. So I'm quite happy actually today to see a bit that we have different sides which now tend to agree that yes, the AI Act is one first step. It's not the end of the story, and it shouldn't be the end of the story. It is not the end of the story. We should now make sure, as Bart also mentioned, make sure that policymakers, together with researchers, together with startups, we all work towards the integrations of this AI in order to ensure a higher competitiveness level of the European continent. And that's really what we want now to achieve within this Commission with huge investments announcement that we have been making. By the way, in the US, we are talking about this $500 billion investments. But this is only private investment. It's not about the public actually supporting the main actors. We, on the other side, in Europe, okay, we have perhaps less stakeholders which can make those very big announcements, but still we managed to gather 200 of these billion euros, among which 10%, 20 billion will come from the public, because the Commission really believes that we need to step up. We need to ensure that actually our different companies, which are not helped by American hyperscaler or Chinese hyperscalers, can benefit from specific type of infrastructure, for instance, or specific frameworks allowing them to use specific or to collect data or put them together in order to train their models that would then be embedded into a system. So actually, innovation versus regulation question mark, I think we all agreed, the four of us already. I hope Ferdinand will not contradict me, but we all agree that there is actually not this distinction to be made, but rather to keep these two together. At European level, we are focusing in the past, and the public debate has been focusing very much on the AI Act negotiation process. Let's now switch, go back to supporting our stakeholders, our startups, our scale-ups, making sure that they can compete also with American, Chinese, and other third countries' stakeholders.
Thank you so much, Alexandre and Ferdinand. You work and you interact on a daily basis with a lot of companies, tech companies, digital companies, working on developing and embedding AI solutions. So you have seen a diversity of cases, of opinions, of concerns. What do your members tell you? And are we shooting ourselves in the foot, or are we on the good path?
Okay, thank you, Sigolene. So, yes, first maybe about the AI Act as such. Agoria, the federation, supports since 2019 the AI Act. So we always have been supporting this initiative. As we all know, the risks, and I think Nathalie and Mona have give some examples of risks. So we need to regulate AI. But the point is, and there maybe we could shoot in our foot, is that if on national or regional, mainly regional level, if we don't support our small companies, our startups and our scale-ups to be compliant with the AI Act, and then mainly these startups and scale-ups willing to integrate or to propose high-risk applications, because it's mainly this for the AI Act, then it will be more difficult for them to grow. I mean, so I think it's good on European level to have the AI Act, but at the other side, on national level, regional level, we need to support these companies to go through this compliance journey. It's quite a burden to go through that. I mean, it's a lot of audit. It will cost quite a lot of money. I mean, we have to support these companies. So this is a side comment to be sure that we don't shoot in our foot. Then we need something more to support our startups and scale-ups. That's one point. What I also would like to say is that the AI Act is okay, but there's a lot of regulation, and we have spoken about that. That could be to reduce the red tape a little bit, could be less intensive. And it's mainly about entrepreneurship, like Bart mentioned. And you mentioned the 28 regime that will come, I think, beginning 26 and 25, something like this. This is a good example of what we should do even more, is to have this more European approach. Where when you create a company, it's a European company, and you don't have to go to the 27 regulations you have in Europe. So that's a good example on how to reduce the red tape. And I think, well, from what I see, Europe is fully aware of that, and that's why you have this kind of initiatives now. It's not only the 28 regime. I think a kind of innovation act will also come in 26. So a lot of things will come from Europe now to support companies in innovation. So that's one point. Another point, maybe Europe should also be more pragmatic. When I say Europe, it's not only the European Commission, but also our companies, everybody, and make choices. We all know about DeepSeek in January. Oh, I was really frustrated. Why was this not created in Europe? I mean, why? What do we miss? It's not a question of money, because we have seen it. And even if the figures that they announced are not really true, even if you put a 0 behind that figure, it is still very doable. So it's more the entrepreneurship climate that has to be pushed, I think, than the rest. To have this European LLMs. Do we need European LLMs? I think maybe, yes, we need it for some very sensitive applications, but also the LLMs from the States are also very good, and a lot of companies are using it. So don't make it also a kind of fight between the two. You can really use all available LLMs quite well. I mean, but okay, on European level, we could also do something to have not only Mistral, but also other more like Hugging Face and then maybe other ones coming up. But I hope really that 25 will still be the year of the European LLMs. I hope this very much. And at the other side, what I hear from the industry is that on the field, they look much more to smaller language models, the SLMs, the small language models. It's small is between 2 and 30 billion parameters, but that is small. That is small compared to DeepSeek, for example. I think 680 billion parameters. But these small models, we can use it more and more also on-premise. And this is something that the industry asks for, to have more on-premise solutions. Also, it's less energy, it's more energy efficient. And these models, smaller models, are trained on specific data sets. I mean, on data sets coming from a specific domain. For example, health, automotive, manufacturing, meaning you don't have to run these models on the whole internet. You run these models on specific databases that are still big, but the output is more robust. You have less hallucinations. It's more something that can be used in the industry when it's more robust. So the focus on these smaller models is something that Europe should or could do, I think, to go for that. Meaning also that we still have to focus on the LLMs, mainly also for robotics, but that's another discussion. This is also something coming up quite fast. I think these are some points about, yes, we can speak about the infrastructure. I see in the Draghi report a lot of focus on infra, a lot of the HPCs, the AI factories and so on. Yes, it's necessary, but on the other hand, in the program we should also have a big focus on the people working on the AI solutions. They are a bit further in the value chain, but these are the people who create added value. The real added value comes from the AI solution builders. And when I see sometimes at European level, it's sometimes like, oh, we need all these GPUs and this infra. I don't say it's not necessary, but I just say try to have a balance with also supporting the AI solution builders.
Thank you so much, Ferdinand. Yes, so I think we have the AI Act at the same time in front of us because it has to be implemented. Also, at the same time, it has been approved. So in a way, it's also behind us. So the debate can ideally focus on other elements. On the company side, Ferdinand was speaking about the technology developer, and we have someone here who is working on developing technology and applications. What would you recommend? What, in terms of competitiveness, in your perspective, you've been in the ecosystem for a while now. You've seen a lot developing. as a company, what would be useful for you in terms of AI? And not only regulation, but competitiveness.
I'm going to use Bart's word, Europe, get out of the way. No, what would be useful? Look, my point in the beginning was, and I'm happy the switch is happening, but my point was we really need to just make sure we have, and all the things you said are true, and I agree with them, like the 500 billion, but we have a structural disinvestment for years. We are behind, and far behind. And those use cases, the solutions that we built, that's the easy part, to be very frank. The technology side, we have great engineers in Belgium and Europe, and they are awesome. But we have a structural disinvestment for years in technology and infrastructure. And I don't mean with infrastructure only HPCs, but I also mean the 28 regime, a real unity. We really, as a Europe, and I think it was Tusk who said it like that, we are 500 million people being protected by 300 billion, being attacked by 140 million people. We have the size, the capability, the people to be a superpower. And we are thinking about, and we're not putting that as a priority. I think we should really try and be a superpower and focus on making sure that we have that infrastructure then, but those companies, the 28 regime, and do that fast, really, really fast. And I just hope, your job is a lot harder than mine. I don't like politics, and I don't like debating with 20 people and then finding a consensus. It must be horrible. But it is essential, and what I just hope is that those politicians make your life a lot easier and find a way to find unity and move faster, because that's what we need. The pace at which we're going is too slow. And I don't want to say to my kids, Europe was great. That's really, and I think it's crazy how people are underestimating that. I'm coming back to the intelligence part, just to make another number to make that clear. As a human, we can produce around 1,000 words per hour, thinking or talking. As a system, we can produce 1 million words per second, and it costs €1. So the way this is going to change is immense, and we need to be on that forefront. That's all I want, and everything that helps us do that faster is good. And then understanding the market and finding solutions for the market, that's our role, and we'll make sure we'll do that well. And we have great companies in Bicentral, in Winter Circus, in Belgium, in Europe, that are really doing great things there. But make sure it gets easier to do that. That's it.
Ferdinand, do you have something to add on that point?
I think I should agree with the pace, that is quite important, but I'm happy that you concluded with also that we have great ecosystems in Belgium. Like mentioned, the Winter Circus is really a great place with great companies, maybe on the AI solution part, but not only, because we have now a new one that will come there, Open Chips. That's a good example of a European company, I think, working more on chips level, to have more energy efficient chips, because we don't have a lot of startups and scale-ups in Belgium in that part of the value chain. AI value chain. So this is something we could also a bit foster. We have IMEC in Belgium, so let's build also on that. So I think we have to change a bit the story line, saying always we are far behind. I don't like this. I mean, we are. I mean, we have examples of very good ecosystems in Belgium. So let's put that in the picture. I mean, we are just so great. I think in Europe we have the potential to be very good. I just want to mention another initiative in Flanders that will come up in 2027. I know the pace is a bit different, but they will have also a kind of AI campus. They will build a new building. They want to be an ecosystem bigger than Berlin, meaning 12,000 square meters, I think. I mean, these are initiatives that will really foster innovation. It will attract also people. It's a question I would also ask Bart, but okay. How to attract these people from the States? I mean, you need something to attract the people. And for this, you need lighthouses. I think you need big projects, but you need also to attract big companies from other continents to come here in Belgium, not for having a sales office, but for having their R&D center here. And so you need then fiscal measures to attract these people also if you want to have these R&D centers in Belgium, because this will attract much more AI experts also. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Antoine Alexandre, do you see maybe looking at the rapid evolution of what is going on in the other continents, what would be, according to you, maybe a third way, either a third way for Europe? How would you see us competing? Should we compete against the others first, maybe? And what could be the keys and what are the levers the European Commission could use or not use? Because the European Commission is not alone, there are also the member states. So what can we do?
So first, as a Belgian, I like consensus. So I like to discuss with lots of people and try to make sense of what people are saying and try to come up with solutions. Second, I think we are actually bold. These days, I like both Ferdinand's and Davio's intervention because we are touching really both sides. We really want to touch the infrastructure, but again, for the most advanced models, because we believe there is actually still a gap that Europe should fill in order to be sovereign. But at the same time, we want, and this is two sides of a new coin, if I may say, we want our companies to use that technologies. If we manage to be the winners, but there is nobody for using the technology, then we lose. Then there is no point in actually even winning. Winning against what, winning for what, and so on and so forth. So that's basically what we are trying to achieve in Europe, and that's also a reply to your questions in the sense that should we choose one or the other, the Chinese approach or the American approach? I don't think so, that we should choose one of the two. I first want to ensure that the European companies understand the benefits of using AI in the production process. That the consumers understand that they can trust actually the solutions being developed and then deployed by those companies. And if we do that, and if we manage to get these competitiveness gains in specific sectors, and I really believe in the strategic European sectors approach, meaning those sectors which have always been our key drivers, like automotive, pharma, manufacturing, robotics, these types of sectors, they can get more out of these technologies. We should make sure that we manage the ecosystem and we manage all the different sides of the value chain. And this, if we do that, we will win. We will win, even if at some point the US attracts more VC investments, perhaps. But if then the American citizens do not believe in the technology because actually the companies developing those technologies are not reliable, that doesn't make sense. They will soon also get away from these technologies. And same thing, but other sides. On the other hand, for the Chinese approach, where there you have a bit too much of a state being involved in the making of these technologies, then changing or modifying or choosing what path should be taken, while in Europe we shouldn't be doing that. We should rather say to our deployers or developers or startups or scale-ups what they want to achieve, what they believe on with a set of baseline or based barriers, what they can achieve.
Thank you. Nathalie and Mona, I have a question for you. When Lucilla Scioli made her presentation before, we heard about the notion of trust and how trust is going to positively impact the demand for AI solution. I was wondering if you have any opinion on that, on the impact of how regulation improves trust, and if this has an impact on competitiveness in return. Is it something you agree with, or do you have other opinion?
Yes, so the term trustworthy AI that was coined by the high-level expert group of the European Commission is something that I remember well because I was there when it happened, and we really chose the term trustworthy because the idea was that trust needs to be earned, so it needs to be worthy of trust. You can't just expect people to trust technology blindly. And the idea was that having guidelines and then later having an AI Act can foster that trust. Now, I have to say, at the same time, you see that in other countries, there is also an ideological part that plays a role. So I want to go back to something that Lucy also mentioned, and that is national security, or European security or sovereignty. Because it seems that we can't always trust also the fact that our allies from before will still supply certain things that we need. So I think the term trustworthy AI now, if we talk about Europe, should no longer only focus on the fact that we have regulatory systems in place that have demonstrably trustworthy AI, but also the fact that it's sovereign. And this is, I think, a point in which I would join, what has been said by Davio and Ferdinand especially, the fact that we need to make sure that our infrastructures in Europe is being invested in, and that AI systems are being developed here so that we can trust, again, not only on the fact that it complies with the AI Act, for instance, but also that it complies with certain ideological ideals that we have in mind and that we protect ourselves. And, just to give an example, I think many of you know that if you use something like DeepSeek, it's not going to tell you the objective truth about, some Chinese historical events. Or just to give another example, at some point, ChatGPT, because of a glitch in the system, as it was later said, would not make any critical comment on Elon Musk or Donald Trump. This just shows that technology is inherently ideological through the people that develop it, through the data sets that it's being trained on, through the people that use it. And so it is actually a matter of security and of sovereignty to also make sure that we have systems that are being developed here that can fall under the rule of law and the concept of the rule of law in the European Union. And maybe a final thing I'll say about the connection between trust and AI. In the European Union, we care a lot about the rule of law. That means that if you go to court and you win a case, you can trust on the fact that the government will actually implement that case. Right? In the States, we see that that is not necessarily happening anymore. And this is something that investors typically don't like. They want to know that if they invest their money somewhere and then a conflict arises, they can go to court and the judgment will actually be respected. So this is, I think, really a crucial moment in the history of the world and also for the European Union to seize this opportunity, this gap that we are seeing in this respect of the rule of law in some countries that might be very strong in the technology, and show that Europe has so many assets, and these are AI talent. I mean, we have brilliant engineers here. This is the fact that we have brilliant ecosystems in many countries. There is still a work to do to try to make sure that we don't have 27 different regimes that need to be accounted by. But we also have the rule of law. We care about certain things, about certain values, and we have institutions in place that are more robust. Of course, we need to protect them, because they can still be fragile, also in Europe. But this is another very strong element on top of all the technical things that we need to keep in mind.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Caroline, do you agree with this link between technology and ideology? And is trust one of the solutions we should aim at in order to be competitive or to move forward?
Having spent 10 years in France, I will allow myself to be provocative, which is not always welcome here at home. I used to love trust and transparency, and I think these two concepts are currently harming us. I think transparency has become impossible because there's too much information out there. We don't know which one is true, which one is not true. And so I think the core concept will be whether it's credible. Can we have a credibility stamp? And if so, by whom? And intelligibility. Is it explainable? Is it understandable? Whereas trust is very subjective. And each of us is living in a bubble. On social media, on TikTok, algorithmic programming is deciding what we see and usually just nurturing what we believe in already. So I used to love trust, but I'm away from it now. I would love to still believe in it, but I don't think that will be the driver of how we should set the tone, right? That doesn't mean we should not keep going, and I think the concept should be truth-worthy. Is it true or not? A high percentage of the results, even on ChatGPT, are untrue. They're just made up. So that calls on how we're going to develop our critical thinking. Who are we to even say whether it's true or not? And at the Space Agency, on the Ethics Committee, we have the same debate. We work on the ethics of satellite data. How do you know whether what is captured by a satellite is true or not? Is that really a climate crisis? Is that a migration wave? Is that a war going on in that region? Maybe there's epidemia there. How can we trust that? And we can trust that whether we can stamp it as credible or not. And then there are derivative views of that. Same with transparency. So I think I would encourage critical thinking because indeed there is ideology in humanity and in technology. And the worst that can happen is that this ideology is replicated, again, made automated and autonomous. And that will ensure actually that even technology remain human, right? And that we keep our humanity throughout the technological innovation, especially with AI.
Thank you. We have, I think, 5 more minutes, and I would like to ask if someone has a question in the audience. Yes, please. Maybe you have someone who is going to give you a fantastic box, which has bumped on your head. So apologies for this.
I'm Hugues Crepin. I'm a Fast Sesame Fast Manager at BOSA. Then I'm working a lot for identity and authentication. It's very interesting for me to have heard all of those topics because we have very specific problems like the laws to apply and what's happening behind the doors. What is my problem with the law? What law will be applied? Because I see minimally 4 dimensions: the user, the location of the user, the location of the headquarter who's owning the application or the IA, and where the servers of the IA are located. Then which law am I supposed to enforce? And secondly, there are the portals. Internet has no borders. Where is the borders? Then if something is happening, what am I supposed to survey? Which law must I apply?
We are very lucky to have people on who can answer to this question because I can't. But Nathalie or Mona, or Antoine Alexandre, of course. Yeah.
So easy answer. If you are no. It's actually very easy under the AI Act. Again, product safety legislation. So if you are citizens and you have actually an AI system which is doing something for you or on you, you are supposed to deal as a providers of that AI systems with the AI Act legislation. Whether you are in Europe, in Malaysia, or in the United States, that doesn't matter. We actually ask all providers of AI systems that are providing systems considered as a product on the internal market and then directly touching you or interacting with you to comply with the legislation. And then, for instance, if you are Belgian national competent authorities might case against the company that could have perhaps not complied with the legislation in your case.
Basically, if you can use it, they need to comply.
Exactly. If you
Yes,
can
but
use it, they need to comply.
Same if I'm in Belgium, in the USA.
Yes, please go ahead if you want to.
So I'm going to answer a bit more broadly, because it's true that software, AI, etc., has no borders. But through ancient time, we've had issues of cross-jurisdiction. So situation, let's say you as a Belgian go on holiday to the US, and you're renting a car there, and you accidentally hit someone, and your wife that sits next to you gets harmed. Which law will apply to the liability? Is it US law? Is it European law? And through centuries, laws have been created in order to see which law will apply. There are treaties specifically about that. And so in Europe, to make it easier when it comes to specific AI cases, the AI Act now harmonizes legislation. But of course, there are so many things that the AI Act does not touch upon, and where you have other legislation in place that will assign which jurisdiction will count in order to solve the problem. So it's not a new problem. It's something that the law specifies, actually, and it depends really on the specific situation.
And finally, the location win.
Yes, that as well. That is an aspect, that's one of the criteria that will be taken into account to decide which law applies to which case.
Thank you. I think we are moving towards a super last question, and then the end. I think we had someone. Okay.
Hello. Thank you very much for this very interesting session. I just have one question related to the previous question. What happened to the AI Liability Act, or whatever it was called, and is it going to come? Because this is going to cover, I think, some aspects of the previous question.
So the AI liability in itself, the Commission has decided to withdraw actually its Commission proposal. Because of several things. First, because there was no clear understanding of the needs among the Parliament, but also among the different member states, of the need to have such additional legislation. So following actually debates we have an echo. Following debates that happened during the last Commission, this Commission has decided to withdraw it and to actually first discuss with the main stakeholders whether or not there would be a need to extend the existing regulatory framework. So it's, again, as part of all our activities surrounding cutting the red tape, if I may say, it's actually one of the actions which is supposed to give to everybody more time to think and not rush into a legislation where they might not need one.
And I think this gives us a light of hope to end this debate and of pragmatism. Thank you, everyone, for giving us your perspectives on this never-ending topic, I would say. And we will follow with interest the rest of the AI Week, which will help us to delve into some of the elements of this challenge of conciliating innovation and regulation. And perhaps the AI Week next year can focus on further explaining us some of the mysteries of implementation of the regulation and how to practically improve competitiveness of those involved. Thank you so much, and have a fantastic evening and a fantastic week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.